Hey there! I'm Clayfect, and I hope you have a splendid day. Today, we are going to make... Well, I'm actually not quite sure what we're going to make. I just felt like playing with some clay and not planning ahead and just have fun. But I know it's going to be great and creative. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, the only sort of base concept I had for this sculpture was that I was going to make a Clayfect monster. But I didn't have any idea what it was going to look like or how I was going to make it. I just let my fingers do the work and relax. I think it's important sometimes just to take the time and not make any big figure, but just relax and have fun with what you're doing. So that was what I was going to do. But even though I didn't have anything specific planned for this little monster, I did know that I wanted to branch out a bit and make it scary. And you're going to see later how well that went. Though for now, as you saw me gesturing very determinedly, I'm just trying to give the little fella a nose, or a snout, as it turns out to be. I didn't think very hard and long over the snout because I was so sure that naturally the scariness of the monster would come out now that I put my mind to making a scary Clayfect monster. But that was when I made my first mistake. You see, I wanted scary, not ugly, so I picked some eyes I liked. I changed them out for some yellow eyes later to make them look more scary, but it didn't quite work, guys, I have to admit. Oh, and by the way, tell me in the comments when you figure out what it is my autopilot hands here are making, because at this point, I was still believing in the scary monster. That's why I made the legs sort of crooked, to make it look even more terrifying. And while we are on the topic, if you like this video, why not hit that like button? Or maybe even subscribe to me. I post videos every single week where we are having so much fun with clay and I tell stories. And I would love to welcome you into the Clay family. Now, back to the sculpture. In hope of making this two-legged character stand on his own, I gave him some really big and flat feet on his stubby legs. But with flat feet on a monster means that it does have to have some nails. So that's what you see me making here. I also decided to make some couple of extra because maybe some spikes and horns would help with the monster look, because I had admitted at this point to myself that it wasn't looking scary at all. But I have not admitted defeat yet. No, it's going to be a very, very scary monster in my mind. But, you know, that's the risk you are taking when you just start to play around with clay. It's wonderful doing it, you should really try it if you not already are sculpting. But you really don't have any idea what comes out. But I was still an optimist and hopeful at this point, so I figured giving it some really big claws on its feet would really help it become more monster-like, and that's what you see me doing here. I have to admit though, while I'm shaping the toes, he looks more scared than he looks scary. So I decided to go for it. He could be scary and scared at the same time. I mean, he was going to become a monster, right? So that was my initial thought when I put on the claws, to make a scared, scary monster. I mean, I have so many times seen Crafting Guard North of Border and Crafting Guard Edge of Clay make monsters So how hard could it really be? By the way, you should really check those guys out, they are brilliant. But for now, I'm just giving our little scared fella some eyebrows. Still completely denying the lack of scariness with this sculpture. I kept going, just letting my hands do the work, and then I moved on to the snout. And it was about this time that it struck me, guys. I realized what had happened. Our little monster was not just any monster. It was a troll. In my attempt of making a somewhat good looking but still scary monster, I ended up making a cute troll. But I still thought I could fix it. All it needed to do was put some wrinkles on his nose, and with a few more other details like this, I was sure that I could turn this wannabe troll into a proper monster. That is also why you see me putting spikes on its head, or horns, as it turns out to be, in the hope of making this troll into a monster. Though at some point I had to admit defeat and realize that no matter what I do, it was going to be a troll. And who was I to say no to that, if it felt like it wanted to be a troll? The challenge today was just to play around with the clay, not do anything specific. So, just like the scared expression, I embraced it and make some troll ears for it. With a Clayfect touch, of course. It was still going to be a Clayfect troll, after all. So, after I had secured the ears safely to the head, I started making him a little tuft of hair, embracing the troll within. And it was at this point that I got so frustrated over it not being a monster but a troll. So I decided that this is the Clayfect uglyfase troll. Yeah, a shy little guy that turns up from time to time and is usually pretty annoying, but also somewhat timid and just want to be there for the company. And it was with this new mindset that I started making the arms. Since the sculpture still couldn't stand on its own, no matter how big feet I made, I decided that he should have a really long tail that could help him ballast him out, so to speak. And him already looking scared, of course he should grab around the tail, like a timid little beast. I was, however, not completely ready to admit defeat on the scary part, so when it came to his hands, I gave him some very long and sharp claws to show that even though it's a timid beast, it can still scratch if it needs to. But even here, the long sharp claws sort of also ended up cute. I don't know how it happened, guys, but it happened. So, in my perspective, there was only one thing to do. Embrace the cuteness. Oh, and by the way, if you have any idea on what we should call this little one, then write it down in the comment below. Until then, it's just going to be the uglyfase troll. But that is more sort of its species, I think, than that it is its actual name. Anyway, let's move onwards to the buttocks that you see me shaping here. Before I move on to giving him some chest hair and some hair around his hands and feet. Because it can't truly be a Clayfect troll if there isn't any sort of fur texture to it, now can it? The weird thing about it is, I don't even like making fur texture. I just like things with fur, which means fur texture. Even though I can understand where the troll is coming from, at this point I was still quite angry at the uglyfase troll, because that was really not what I had in mind when I started. But that's also the fun part of it, isn't it? Now here you see me giving him a little belly button. Belly button? Is that how we call it? Anyway, before I try to cover up his shame with some clothes, which is a linen cloth. I'm making a linen cloth here, guys. Before I start whipping it apart to give it that troll aesthetic I am now going for. And with that, all I needed to do was make something to hold the linen cloth, which is a rope, to again fit in with the troll aesthetic. My imagination had definitely at that point gone completely bye-bye, thanks to the uglyfase troll. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, the knot on the rope did break off doing baking, so I made another one later on. But at that point, it was time for the tail. And I tried to measure it, tried to bend it, tried to figure out how to put it before I took some more wire and wrap around the wire to make the clay stick better. I'm not really sure that the extra wire helped at all, or if it was just a nuisance to me. But the clay remained firmly on as I worked on the tail anyway. It did take a lot of smoothing, however, but I was happy when I could finally just plug it in and shape the tail around him before I put the rest of it into his hands. I also made a little tuft of hair I put on it before I gave him some clay softener, and then it was off to the oven. And here we have him. The not so scary uglyfase troll.
Hello!
But he also is a Clayfect troll, so of course he's going to need some Clayfect colors. So I started with a purple base before I painted his hair another more violet shade of purple. I may not have committed to the scary monster concept, but I did commit to the Clayfect concept in it, which is why I painted his little tuft of hair in another shade of purple, only to go in to the ears with, you guessed it, a different kind of sort of pink purple. And with the more transparent pink purple, I had to paint it a couple of times before I went in with the dry brush on the hair again. And of fear of saying purple too many times and being a little bit tired of the color, I decided to paint his clothes the another Clayfect color, that yellowish white cream color. And with that painted, that only took about 7 layers, I painted the rope in a traditional brown color before I dappered another shade of purple again on the little thing. After that, all I had to do was super glue his new rope knot on, and then decided that I didn't like the clear nails, so I gave him a mani-pedi, you can say, with again another shade of cream color that is almost identical to the clothes color, but not quite. And with that, guys, I think that is it for this sculpture and it for this video. I'm not quite sure on what to say about this little fella. I don't even know if I like him.
I will be back.
But I do hope you like him. And I hope you like this video. Thank you so much for watching. It really means the world to me. And I hope to see you next time. But if you can wait until next time, why not click on the square to your right? then you can see me making a jackdaw phoenix, where I actually have a plan on what I'm doing. Until then, bye!
Bye.